Hello everyone, welcome back to SwitchUp and to two broken hosts, aren't we, this week?
Yep, illness has struck unfortunately, but we're going to try and soldier on through this video. So this is our Interesting Games video, of course, the series where we look at 6 games, 3 each that we've been playing recently, and just have a basic chat about them.
Exactly right. As always, if you do want to save yourself a bit of money, I know at least until the end of August, you can still save 10%, 5% instantly, and 5%, and you get 5% back in SwitchUp coins using code SwitchUp over at switchup.gg. Well, that was a lot, wasn't it?
It was a mouthful. So which games have we been playing then? Well, let's find out.
Alright, let's start off then with one that I played quite a while back and I played a little bit of, very small amount of recently, and I thought it'd make a good discussion. And it's Doki Doki Literature Club. It's something like that.
Doki Doki Literature Club.
That's the one.
That's the one.
Now, you're a big visual novel fan, and this has a bit of a reputation, doesn't it, as being a standout, like exceptional.
Yeah, it has a very big fan base behind it. Before we start talking about this, is this spoilers? Do we give a spoiler warning?
Yeah, it won't be too spoilery, but yeah, we probably should give a spoiler warning.
Just be aware that we're talking about a game that you may want to experience for yourself.
I'm going to cut straight to the ending.
Just be aware, that's what I'm going to say. But yes, I am a big fan of visual novels. I haven't played this one. I know a bit about it, and I do own it, but I just not got around to this one yet.
Yeah, it's unusual. I think it's designed essentially to be played through like multiple times.
Yes.
But those playthroughs are quite short. Mm-hmm. And then the first one, it's obviously like, you heard the music there, it's really like, I don't know how you describe it.
Happy and chipper.
Hey, everything's fine.
Yeah.
And then it all gradually goes strange. Each playthrough, it's like almost like the game breaks.
Right.
So like the menus changes slightly and it just goes very, very unusual. And then there's, again, spoiler warning, there's kind of this parallel universe thing going on. I don't know what it was. It just hasn't clicked with me the same as it has. I've heard it called a masterpiece quite a lot.
Yep.
And actually, I think I much preferred, I've only played a very small amount of it from your recommendation, Raging Loop.
Yeah. I mean, Raging Loop does something similar in some respects, in that every time you play through, you kind of notice things that are slightly different, or you think that's weird, last time X happened. But yeah, again, I don't want to say too much. I don't want to go complete spoiler territory and spoil, the point of this game. But it is one I am intrigued to play. Obviously, I can't comment on your feelings towards not being quite as enthralled by it because I haven't played it. But what I will say about visual novels in general is I do really enjoy when they do that, when you play through the game and then you play through it again with some sort of different perspective for whatever reason. Do you know what I mean? I played a game called, I think it was called World End Syndrome or World End Club. It was something like that. It was a while ago I played it. But that did something quite similar in that respect. It was like a murder mystery game. But you'd play I played the first 5 hours and then you finish the prologue and the whole game changes. Do you know what I mean? But then you play it from kind of different perspectives, or each time you can have a different love interest. And whilst I'm not always hot on that in visual novels, it's the aspect of it that doesn't always click with me. Because of the way this game played, you saw a completely different side of the story because you were with a different person for some of it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
I wonder if it's the whole, because when I played this, it was for a review that never ended up happening, I don't think.
Yeah.
And you play things differently, don't you, when you're reviewing them?
Yes.
I think visual novel inherently requires you to slow down.
Yep.
And actually pay attention to what's going on,
for sure.
in terms of all that dialogue on screen. And I'm so used to almost sometimes, especially if it's like not that important, you'd almost skip through extra fast through certain things, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I've just played Danganronpa.
Yeah.
1 and 2. I've spoken about both of them actually, but I spoke about 2 in the last one of these, I believe. Although that was only 2 weeks ago, because we had holidays booked and whatnot. We actually recorded it a fair bit earlier than that. So in the month since then, I've finished that game.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a great visual novel. And both of those are very good. And that does something similar, actually, in terms of shifting your expectations towards the end.
Yeah.
And it shifts them quite a lot from the first game, actually. I was quite surprised with the route they went, but it does all make sense by the end.
So it was good, like really good by the end.
Yeah, by the end, I really liked the way they took it, because the first game, again, it's difficult when you're talking about story-based games. You don't want to say too much, but what the first game did in terms of its story towards the end, I really enjoyed.
Okay.
Really thought it was very clever. And I was wondering what they could do in the second game to, if not, it doesn't have to match it necessarily, but just to keep you invested the second time round. And for the most part, I was enjoying the game for what it was, but I really was wondering, like, they need to do something here. Do you know what I mean? It needs something to happen.
What was the premise again of the sequel?
So the premise of both games really is very similar in that these group of characters are locked dropped into a school-based setting, and they're told that they need to basically murder their classmates in order to be freed.
Ouch.
And then there's like a class trial, and if the murderer gets away with it, they're released, and if everyone else works out who it was, they're executed. So that's the basic premise. The second one changed that up a little bit by it was completely different. You're on a desert island, and the point of it was to find these hope fragments, because the whole thing is about hope versus despair. But then that quickly changes, it turns on its head, and it goes back to actually, no, you're here, you've been captured, and you need to do the same again. And that's what I mean. It kind of followed the same story beats quite religiously, and I was like, I don't feel that this is done yet. It's going to do something, it's going to change it up. Yeah. And it does. Right. And it does it in a very clever way. And sorry to go off on a tangent, but my point was that I do like it when visual novels do that. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I do like it when they play with your expectations. And I think to get the most out of the game you're talking about, Doki Doki, I think you don't have to know that going in. It's probably better you don't know that, actually. Yeah. But if you like that, then I think this is a game that you could get on board with. But then I suppose at the same time it does depend on how you find enjoyment in a story. It might just be the story didn't grab you. Do you know what I mean? Irrespective of that.
I think so.
You know?
Yeah, no, I think it was the story didn't grab me, and I think it was just sometimes you have an expectation going in, and if it doesn't line up with that, it can just, I don't know, it just didn't match what I was thinking it was going to be at all.
Yeah,
I just wasn't ready for that like weird cutesy classroom kind of going the Donnie Darko route.
It's funny because when I first saw the trailer for this game way back when, because I'd heard it was a horror game, and obviously a lot of times in with Japanese games or medium, any sort of Japanese medium, they do go down the cutesy route and then shift it. Yeah. But none of the trailers I saw even hinted at anything remotely sinister. I was like, am I thinking of the right game? Do you know what I mean? But yeah, clearly there is an element of that in there.
I think like maybe when people first played it, it just caught them off guard and it became a bit of a cult classic.
Yeah.
But because again, I was expecting something to happen, so when it did, I was a bit like, oh, okay. So yeah. But yeah. So those, I guess, are the first two games.
Yeah, there's 2 for 1 there. What I'm going to say just about Danganronpa 2, well, not about that game, but I'm going to ask her for a favour in the comments. Can people just advise me on which order to play them in? Because there are quite a few of these games and I'd like to move on. But I have heard there's a couple of little side stories that are worth investing in, or I think there's even some like little story shorts that you can watch. So without spoiling anything, please don't put anything story related, but just give me an order which would be a good order to play the games. That would be much appreciated. Right, let's move on to, game 3 then, if that's 2 for 1. Yeah.
Game 3, we might as well talk about Trine 5, which we've been playing a little bit of in co-op, and as the title suggests, is the 5th in a very long running series that doesn't seem to mix up the formula a huge amount.
It stays very true to what you would expect if you've played the games before, which is, I suppose we should explain just in case, is that you have 3 characters. Yeah. You have a knight, a wizard, and a thief, isn't it?
Thief, yeah.
And they all have different powers that they can use. So the wizard can create blocks and platforms using magic, of course. The knight has a shield and a sword, so obviously you can attack, but you can also use the shield to deflect other items or projectiles, and you can also use it as a platform. You can stand on it. Yeah. And the thief is quite agile, has a bow and arrow, and can use rope to attach onto hooks and whatnot and swing about the place. And you basically use those 3 characters to solve a number of physics-based problems in the environment, don't you?
Environmental puzzles. You can use the old shield for water as well, can't you?
Yeah.
Fill up buckets and stuff.
Yeah.
It's fine. I think, again, we've seen a few games kind of post-Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, where it now feels clunky. Stuff before you'd have been like, wow, that's impressive. Yeah. Now I'm a bit like, oh, that's just janked out, whereas it wouldn't have done over there. And it kind of, I don't know, it's not that it's bad, it's the formula of the game is basically problem to problem to problem, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but it can, for me at least, it becomes tedious after a while.
Absolutely.
And it's not a problem. I mean, it's just the way I play games. I'd play a game like that, I'd play a couple levels tops, and I'd stop. Yeah. When you're reviewing a game, obviously you can't do that. And you have to soldier on. And for me, just the formula in general after a while gets a bit stale.
Yeah, I'd say so. Because there are some really, really good co-op games. We're actually going to talk about one in a minute that, in my opinion, does similar things, but it does a lot. It's much more interesting.
Yeah, and this isn't a bad game, and if you've enjoyed the other Trine games, you'll enjoy this one just as much. It does introduce a few new bits. There's like a skill tree, I think, thrown in there this time. It looks lovely, to give it its due, and not just, I mean, a lot of games look very pleasant on the surface, and then you get a bit closer and textures start loading in late and things like that. This actually, from what I see at least, didn't do any of that. It looks really, really quite nice. And yeah, it's just a case of, as you mentioned, I think maybe things like Tears of the Kingdom have shown how physics can be handled. Yeah. And this has kind of stuck to that tried and tested, and it's been shown up a little bit by the 5th entry, you know?
It is. That's exactly it. It's optional versus enforced.
Yes.
Like we saw a couple of optional moments in here, and they were probably our most fun times where we did things just obviously how we shouldn't have done them.
Yeah.
But when you're forced to do a specific way, it can get a bit tedious, a little bit. And like Glenn says, sorry, I'm not. It's a good game if you like the Trine series. It's very much the next game in the Trine series with a little bit more than the previous ones with the skill system. So if you really like those, and they are quite good games, it's just a personal preference.
Yeah, I just think maybe by the 5th entry they should have changed it up a bit more. I don't think that's unfair to ask after 5, you know, in any series. And I also, again, this is probably a personal thing about all the Trine games going all the way back. I've never found the wizard character particularly fun to use. I like the idea, you know, like obviously the blocks and whatnot that you can create. It's almost a staple of the physics-based genre, you know, if you want to call it a genre of itself, or the puzzle genre. But just feels quite tedious. I like the movement of the thief. I like the versatility of the knight. The wizard just seems to slow everything down, doesn't he, you know? Yeah, they're
like, come on. And he's like, I'm just summoning a block. No, just get a move on.
It's exactly that, isn't it? Like, they've swung across. The knight's just brute forced his way through, and he's standing there making his cue.
Spectro!
Yeah.
No.
Oh, dear. But no, not a bad game. I know that sounds quite negative, but it's just, by number 5.
Yeah.
A bit, I think
it's so safe, isn't it?
It needed a shot in the arm, didn't it?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, not just a 5 on the end.
Exactly right. But let's move on to another co-op game, as you say. And this one's called It Takes Two.
It does indeed.
It does in this game. This is one that I mean, it's been out for a while.
Yep.
Lots of people said lots of good things about it, and I bought it around about Christmas time to play with my wife, and we just never got around to it. But we did play it recently and had a lot of fun. Really, you know, very pleasantly surprised. Even though I'd heard it was a good game, it was better than I thought it was going to be.
I'm the same. Yeah, my daughter and I just started playing it on Xbox actually like last week. It was a good coincidence, that, isn't it? It's a good coincidence. So we started playing it, and I'm the same. You hear these things, and I don't know what it is. I think because the backlog's so huge, there's so many games you want to play. There are games that people say are amazing, but you're like, nah. But she wanted to play it, and it's actually quite emotive, isn't it?
Yes.
Again, the minor 5 minutes into the story, spoilers. The very beginning, the parents are having problems, basically, and then they get transformed into these two puppet creatures, don't they?
Yeah, it's got a very a Disney feel to it. You know, the classic, there's a problem, child wishes something would resolve it, you know, something goes awry, and other characters are affected and then have to work together to hopefully, you know, come to a happy conclusion. Very much had a Disney feel to it, but well presented.
Really well presented.
I like the art style. On the Switch, I will say that it just has the classic problems, you know, hair looks like straw, talking of text just loading in, you know, that happens in the cutscenes, but nothing major. You'll look past it, you know.
Well, it is on Game Pass, so if you do have an Xbox, and it looks incredible across there. But it's, do you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of a playable version of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Yeah, I can see where you're going with that,
Yeah, I really enjoyed the movement. I love that you can sprint around separately. I like that the screen splits and you can really just go off in your own, you know, you do obviously have to do certain things and it kind of channels you, but it doesn't feel enforced loads of the time. There are things like the nail gun you were saying.
Yeah, so I reckon we're about 2 hours in, ish, you know. So we've just acquired a hammer. One character gets a hammer and the other person gets like a glorified nail gun, bearing in mind you're little people, you know. And so the hammer can be used to swing across platform or gaps, you know, chasms, and the nail gun, you assist them by shooting nails into the wall to create something for them to hook onto. But it works very well. Works very well. And just the puzzling in general, actually, I thought was quite intuitive. And I tell you, I can't really explain why, but I felt this was one of the best uses of co-op in a game that I'd seen. You know, we've played lots of games like this, you know, Unravel, to give another example, things like that. All very good games. But this one, it felt so organic. Like it genuinely felt like you needed two people. It felt like it was designed to be a two-player game from the very start. I'm sure it was. I mean, you know, the name of the game would imply that, but it genuinely feels like that. You know.
I think for me it's because there's a lot that you can do solo that's fun. You know, like there's a lot of platforming, so to get to a thing, it's not always grab my hands and lift me up. You know, and it doesn't have that stop-start. It's very fluid. When you crawl through those vents, like you're just doing stuff, and they can actually be miles behind you. You know, and just make their own way. And I think it's really good. And plus the setting helps a lot because it's just intriguing, isn't it? You always, when you're a kid, you think about, you know, if I got shrunk down, what would it look like? The Hoover
boss. He's that was good.
Or vacuum cleaner. Sorry.
But again, I think that ties into why it's such a good co-op game, because again, we spoke about Trine just now, and let's that's not to say this is always the case in Trine, but sometimes one player can just brute force their way through a puzzle and the other player can just spawn across the problem. Here, both of you are always involved. There's never a time, even in Unravel, which again, my wife and I played and enjoyed, you can jump on the other player's back if you find it too difficult, can't you? Here, you have to work together. And it's kind of the point of the game, isn't it? The story, again, talking about this couple that are having problems and are constantly arguing, but they have to work together. And there's this like magical book, isn't there, that pops along every so often.
Funny, that book.
He's quite funny. He sounds like Mr. Potato from Peppa Pig. And he constantly lambasts them and says, no, like, you know, you're not going to get through it if you don't work together. And he kind of makes things harder for them. So they have to work together. But that translates into the gameplay. You do have to work together. And my wife doesn't like having to control a camera in games, you know, so basically 3D games, you know, where you have to move the camera. She finds that difficult, and I'll give her a due. She did very well with this game, because obviously it is a 3D environment. But I think that's because the game helps you with that. I just think it's a very well designed game, you know. Yeah,
there's some like quite fast paced sections as well that I know it's completely different, but it has that feel of like Sonic, where you start your spin and you go through all the loops and do all your jumps and stuff. There are these pipes that you jump down into, aren't there? And you have to jump from one, and it's really nice and fluid and fast. I was like, you don't really expect that in the air quote slower paced puzzle.
No,
you know.
I thought this was going to be like that game, Human Falls Flat.
Yeah,
do you know that one?
It
is a good game. Physics based again, but I don't know why. I think because they look like ragdolls, I just assumed it was going to be that sort of physics based, and it's not at all. But yeah, very, very good game. I would highly recommend this one if you're looking for something to play. With the Switch version, I don't know exactly how it works, but it does mention that if you're playing online, obviously, the second player can play for free. Now, I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means they don't need a copy of the game. I don't know if that you need to sign up for something because it's an EA game.
It's weird.
I don't know what that means, but playing in local, you don't have to worry about any of that. So just something to mention, because you know it may be a caveat for people wanting to buy it. Maybe just look into that a bit closer, but in local, it's not a problem, you know.
Yeah. All right. I want to finish with the game that we reviewed yesterday, which was Sea of Stars.
Yes.
And just a few points, because since the review went out, I've watched a few other reviews, and I haven't heard many negatives. Like, I haven't heard any negatives from anyone else. At all. Now, I know obviously I've read in the comments people saying, oh, it's, you know, it was based on classic JRPGs and that's why this and that's why that. But let me just say, there are a few things in it that I don't like. Like, there's no mapping system at all. Like, at all. Like, you've got your world map, but it's not really a map because they're separate, so you can't really zoom out and see everything. You've got your, in a town, there's no map. In a dungeon, and they are full on like Zelda-y style dungeons, there's no maps. Now, you have to correct me here, but although that might be accurate to some older games, why wouldn't you update that?
I've always had this problem, and I'm more than happy for people to say that they prefer that way. They like, if it's going to be a homage, then stick to exactly what, you know, you're referencing, what your inspiration was. I don't agree with that though, I must say. And I'm going to give an example. I love movies as much as games, you know? And a good example, I think, is when they remade Psycho. Had Vince Vaughn in it and whatnot. Now, it was effectively a shot-for-shot remake of the original Psycho, right? First of all, what's the point? I mean, it was literally shot-for-shot, right? There are certain parts of the first Psycho, or the original Psycho, that don't hold up. There's a part where a character is stabbed and falls down the stairs. And they basically did this really awkward-looking, like the camera was in the character's face and he was kind of flailing his arms to make it, it looked very, very, you know, today it looks quite awkward to watch. That's what you update. Update that shot. Didn't. Kept it exactly the same. Do you know what I mean? like, there are things you can update, and then they, I mean, to go off on a tangent, sorry,
tangent away.
They added odd things like some weird, like, psychedelic dream bits. It's like, well, if you're going to add that, you know, why not update things that you could have genuinely improved, you know? Yeah. Like, they did a shot at the very start of the film, which was a shot that Hitchcock himself wanted to do in the original, but couldn't due to the limitations of technology, where it was one continuous shot into the window of a building. Yeah. They did it. That's a good update. Doing something the original couldn't do. In my opinion, games should do that, even if you're referencing a classic old game, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, again, there will be people that prefer it this way because, you know, it's an old JRPG style. But on top of that, and this is where I do think it's an issue, like, especially for I don't want to say a modern audience haven't got as good attention span, but not having a quest or story log, like nothing at all, for me is a bit of an issue. Especially when you're in a town and it's like, I'll go and... I'll tell you what, right at the start of the game, this isn't really a spoiler. Gull, your like pal, he goes missing in the town. It's like, go and find Gull. But I didn't see that because I'd popped out the room and my daughter was in there. And I was just like, what on earth do I do? He's somewhere very obvious, but you can do the whole town, the whole map that's available. It can literally take you hours, trust me, and then find that he was right there, but with no waypoint and no, like, if it had said like find Guile in the,
Yeah.
whatever. It just, I don't know. Yeah, and those are my two gripes, and I know they sound really minor, and I guess they kind of are. The game is still amazing. I guess that says a lot, right?
Yeah, it does. It's funny, isn't it? Like sometimes you wonder, like, who is your audience? Who are you aiming your game at? You know, like, 'cause if it's a classic, if it's a homage to classic games, then you're clearly. It's not to say you're singling that demographic out, but you're clearly aiming it towards people that played those back in the day. Most of those games came out early 90s. So you're probably looking at people that are around about 10 years old then, who are now 40 odd. Us. Talk about us, you know what I mean? Now, there will be people of our age that, as you just said, absolutely want it to be exactly as it was when they were a child. They want to play a new game that's exactly what those games were. And I do understand that. But I do also think there's a trail of thought that 40-year-olds don't have the time to play a game the way they played a game as a 10-year-old. And I do personally feel that sometimes it's a game or a developer's responsibility to just appreciate that fact, even if it's by way of an optional something. Do you know what I mean?
The game has a relic system, right? You pick up relics and they're essentially accessibility options. So one of them gives you 50% more health, one of them makes timing supposedly easier for these real-time blocking and attacking. Why not have an accessibility map toggle?
Exactly, because accessibility, some people shudder when they hear that word because they think you mean invincibility mode or extra this or extra that. It could be as simple as, do you want a map or do you want to play at classic mode? You know?
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't. Yeah, exactly. And I don't think it would require huge amounts of work, really. And a list of objectives, please.
Yeah.
For the love of everything, please, a list of. Now, I need to say some positive things.
Yeah.
I mean, you've seen the game.
Yeah.
It looks ludicrous, doesn't it?
Yeah, it looks lovely. Looks lovely.
So I saw, again, I did see one review and it was like, this is better than 2D HD. And I'm like, no, that's not really how art works. If you've got two stunning masterpieces, you don't really go, this one's better than that one. You can just say they're both amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I like 2D HD because I like the fact it took what was old and made it new. But I do really, I've said this plenty of times, so have you, to be fair, that I do really appreciate when a developer takes the time to evoke memories of classic pixel art, but in a way that couldn't be done back in the day, or add those little details that just make it, bring it up a notch for today's audience, you know?
It's funny, isn't it? Because I was thinking when we were talking about Zelda last week, I don't remember Zelda in the monochrome.
Right.
You know, when I think back to the experience, I'm almost remembering this saturated, lush world.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
And then this is almost what they've done here, isn't it? It's oversaturated and it looks ridiculously good. And then you've got things like glows around the Bella was like, why are there glows around all the characters? I know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, lovely game. Really good though, and you should definitely check out our full review. It's very good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just to make it clear, obviously Mark's reviewed this game. He said all the positives in the world about it. This is an extra chat where we're sitting down as two mates, and he's just saying, on top of all that lovely stuff, there's a couple of bits I just want to speak about that I couldn't go overboard in a review about. So I don't think this is a negative on that, and watch the full review to get the full story. But the last game then for the video is one I've been playing recently, which is called Sword of the Vagrant.
Yeah, I know it.
So basically, this game went on to Amazon pre-order, physical copy I'm talking about, months and months ago, for about £20, give or take. And I really like the look of it. I didn't know anything about it really. I saw a couple of screenshots. Has that kind of vanillaware, hand-drawn look to it. And I thought, I fancy some of that. So I pre-ordered it, and then it just kept getting delayed. But they didn't send me emails. I just forgot about it. But it was meant to come out in May, and it turned up a couple of days ago. So yeah. But I played it. And I did hear, I read in a forum, I can't remember where, so I can't provide a link, so I do apologise, but I did read that it was the developer did work for Vanillaware at some point. So if that is true, then you can clearly see, obviously, the inspiration. But you play as a sellsword, and she basically gets kind of tricked by this witch into assisting her in looking for an artifact that she wants by being cursed. You have to find this thing, otherwise I won't lift the curse off you. And basically, that's the start of your adventure. And it plays in a very similar way to Vanillaware games such as Muramasa. What's the other one? Is it Dragon's Crown? I think it's called.
It rings a bell.
I think it's called Dragon's Crown. Yeah, I've played it on the Vita. Good game. Where you go screen to screen, and when you look at your map, it's kind of a series of rectangular boxes connected by a line.
So it's not. I've only played a little bit of this. It's not a Metroidvania or anything.
Not as such. It has the elements of backtracking,
right?
And you'll have to go back to places from previously in your adventure. But it's not a Metroidvania in the sense that you'll find things that will allow you to access. It's not like that. It's just more of an adventure where you need to backtrack, basically. Do you know what I mean? Now I don't really know how to feel about this game. I'm going to be honest, because I've played about 3 hours of it, and for 2.5 hours of that, I was really enjoying it. And a couple of things happened last night that really wound me up to the point that
we sound like a right pair of grumpy old.
I know. But to the point that I don't know if I want to play it anymore. Like that bad.
Go on.
And it was late at night. I will say that it was late at night. I was tired. My daughter had been up a couple of times, not been able to sleep, and it was one of those. I was playing it because I couldn't sleep. Yeah, so it might be a bit of that. So I will say that. But first thing is certainly not that, and that is that it has a manual save system. You have to find manual saving checkpoints. Right. Now that's not the only game in the world to do that. Don't get me wrong. But I defeated a boss last night. Went forward, went a bit further, died, went back to before the boss fight, and had to beat him again. Now I'm sorry, there's no excuse for that. If the only point in a game that you don't use the manual save is after a boss fight, then make that so. Yeah. Don't have me fight the boss again. That's a complete waste of my time.
Not even Dark Souls does that.
No, that's a joke.
Put you back to the bonfire and the boss will be dead.
Yeah, exactly right. Because the save point is just before the boss. Now, all right, you live and learn. When I beat him the second time, I walked backwards and saved it.
Did you comment to him while he was lying on the floor defeated? Were you like,
spat in his face, mate. Stamped on his ghoulies. It's like, yeah, have it twice. You so and so.
Easy. That was easy.
But yeah, I walked back and I saved it. I learned the hard way. But come on, that's not okay,
silly, isn't it?
Yeah,
one at each end. Come on,
exactly
basics.
Right. Or like you say, go back to the point, but he's dead the next time you walk in the room.
It's a bit cheeky, that is.
That's not okay. But so that certainly wasn't anything to do with timing. But just the platforming is so awkward. Like you have to double tap deep, left or right to run.
I never like that.
No, I never like that. But then you have to obviously jump, and you're standing on something that's a foot long. Yeah. And you have to try and get the momentum, double tapping, to be able to get to the edge of it and jump high enough to get onto the next platform. And then things like you'll jump and you'll do this 4 times to get to the very top. And before you've even processed where you are, someone shot an arrow at you and you've been knocked off and fallen all the way down again.
I've got a game that I think you'll enjoy.
Yeah.
Have you heard of a game called Only Up?
No.
I'm going to definitely sit you down for maybe I don't know, like the next special we do.
Right.
It's that in a game.
Really?
It's designed that you just climb, and you will fall an hour's progress to the bottom.
Gee.
And it'll be like laughing at you, and you just have to start again.
No, that's not a game.
We need
me.
to have a go.
Only Up. Do one up.
Do one up.
No, but yeah, again, I know it sounds negative, but I was genuinely enjoying this game, and it just got to this part where, and you're backtracking, and with that map system, River City Girls 2 did a similar sort of system with like the boxes connected by a line. And it's not the most clear of, sometimes it says you can go down here and you can go down there in the same box. And there's clearly points in the screen where you can leave. Yeah. But it's finding them and stuff. And, when you're falling all the way down, you have to get back up. And it did start to really irritate me. And it's a shame because there is a good game in there. You collect mana as well as coins as you defeat enemies. You kind of get locked into screens. You have to defeat all the enemies and move on. And you can...
It's quite a light game.
You can purchase new abilities and stuff. There's a good game in there. But there are some flaws that, again, maybe it just comes down to being that bit older and not having as much time. And when you feel like the game is not just wasting your time, but, waving it in your face, it starts to irritate you. And I think I will persevere with it, but I think I need a couple of days off from it,
Yeah, take a break.
Yeah.
Have a little break, because it is a good game.
Yeah, have a Kit Kat.
Could go for a Kit Kat. If my insides weren't so messed up.
What a lovely way to end the video. So yeah, that's 6 games from two people that are not very well, and I just whinged about them for the whole time.
Oh, come on. It's all good. We gave the pros as well.
Exactly.
Lovely. As always, please do save yourself some money on your eShop credit over at switchup.gg using code SwitchUp, and we get a little kickback from Nintendo, which is great because you can pick up another game that annoys you.
Exactly. Who doesn't want that in life? There's also a link down there to Play Asia if you want to import any games to annoy you. Use the link, use the code, get yourself 5% off of your order.
That's a tasty discount.
That's a nice little bit there. A quick thank you to our patrons and our channel members for your continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, and until next time, happy gaming.